we used to drive around this area for the last 20 years. And we came here a long time ago with our dog, and the water was up to that, up to the guard tower there. It's been dropping the last couple of years pretty severely.
Well, we sold our boat. We actually live on the other side of the lake, but that's the lowest levels. So it's about a football field where it used to be water of pure muck, and it's not coming back like a little bit. It's just wet and mucky, and it's filled with thistles. And
yeah, I mean, if it doesn't start coming back, there's one of the points of having our house was having the lake access, and you don't have lake access, so there's no real benefit in it anymore. So we would probably, if it doesn't come back in a few years, I'm sure we'll be leaving.
White Bear Lake has long been an important gathering place for local inhabitants. For thousands of years, the lake was a place of sustenance and spiritual significance to Native Americans. Woodland Indians built sacred burial mounds along its shores. In the late 19th century, early settlers were joined by summer visitors, many of whom came for the religious assemblies that provided education and entertainment for families during the summer months. Hotels, pavilions, and amusement parks also offered fun and recreation for visitors of all ages. First a railroad, then streetcars made it even easier for people from St. Paul to visit and enjoy the lake. Many illustrious families of St. Paul made their summer homes here. Mark Twain heralded this resort community in his Life on the Mississippi, and in the early 1920s, F. Scott Fitzgerald lived by the lake and used it as a backdrop for one of his most famous short stories. Along with the lake's many attractions, of course, there was boating. While the amusement parks eventually became a thing of the past, the clean, expansive waters of White Bear Lake have through the years remained popular for sailing, swimming, and fishing.
Well, my grandfather, John O. Johnson, came over from Norway and got a job with Gus Amundsen, a boat builder here, and 2 years later, in 1896, he started his own shop, and that business run by J.O.'s sons, my father included, and then my cousin Skip Johnson ran it until the business was then sold in 1998. And so a run of over 100 years, which is a pretty good run for a family-owned business. So anyway, I've spent my whole life on the lake, well, except for 4 years when we were in suburbia. But anyhow, what we're saying here is historic in nature here, that we're at extremely low water levels, not even as much, even lower than what they were in the Dust Bowl era in the 30s. So anyhow, I'm hoping against hope that nature and other maybe human intervention here will allow the lake to return to its normal height. We're down about 5 to 6 feet from where it should be right now. Ideally, this is about where the water line should be. It has been high enough so that on the back side behind us here, that seawall, well, the water would be up to it.
Where was the water when you first moved here in 1978?
It was about right here.
Well, the kids and I used to swim when they were growing up. We were in the lake most every day, and we didn't have to walk and walk and walk to get to the water. And this is really depressing to see this much in just a month or a month and a half. We were in this water though in July. This was water. And now it's
I did grow up in Forest Lake, but my grandparents are in Stillwater, and we'd meet over here because it's such a nice town, and we'd walk the beach and go over where there's volleyball on the other beach, and we played on this park here a lot when I was a kid. It seemed like it was always packed, and all summer long there'd be blankets all the way around and lots of kids making sandcastles, and it's definitely went from a busy beach to this quiet, kind of deserted thing that just the locals kind of come by.
The volleyball court is up there. It wasn't here before they kind of remodeled the whole shoreline because the beach was like way up where the rocks are, and now it's way down here. And so even before when we wanted to swim, we would pretty much walk all the way out to here and swim, but now it's such a far walk on the beach. It's just kind of disappointing.
I don't know, the beach isn't as nice and it hurts your feet when you walk on it. Yeah, but I don't know, it's just not as nice as it used to be. Not as many people come at all.
Not as many people come.
They don't like swimming in the water anymore, and they, like when we invite them, they're like, nah, it's okay, we don't like that beach. Because it's not as fun as it used to be.
Yeah, I broke a propeller 2 years ago by hitting a rock, and I was out a good 100 yards from shore. It was just a low spot. I didn't see it all, and all of a sudden I felt the boat lift up and hit the rock, and I lifted the motor up while we were there and looked, and yeah, the propeller was broke. So yeah, it doesn't do good for that. So
we come down to the water almost every day, but my kids are too young to know the lake at its regular level. I tell her all the time where the lake used to be, but she's never seen it like that. It's always been low.
for about the last 10 years, we've helped sponsor a Leukemia Cup Regatta, which it brings in not only our boats here from the White Bear Yacht Club and Black Bear, but from other lakes, Minnetonka and Bald Eagle. Can't do it this year because we can't get the boats in. And we'd raised like $50,000, $60,000. So it hurts everybody.
It's not only a residential hub, but it's also a commercial hub. And the health of the lake is directly related to how much property taxes come out of the people that live around the lake. And if the property values go down and the property taxes go down, then it ultimately comes back and hits people like commercial.
I'd say that overall the marinas are maybe 60% occupied when there was waiting lists. And then the number of weekend either fisher people or recreational boaters or sailors is the lowest I've seen in memory.
Because it has a small watershed on the surface, when it rains, there's just not a lot of land area that will contribute to it. It has a benefit historically is that it has this aquifer that was underneath, the sandstone and limestone layer, that when that's full, it actually is above the bed of the lake. Aquifers being typically sands, gravels, or sandstones, limestones, rock formations that have pore spaces in them that can hold water. So an aquifer is basically a geologic layer that can hold some water in it. And so when it's full and it rains, it doesn't tend to go down very much because there's aquifer levels holding it up.
Perry Jones is a geologist with the U.S. Geological Survey in Minnesota. He led a 2011 study of White Bear Lake to help determine why the lake level has been dropping.
We looked at kind of a record from 1978 to 2002 and then compared that to the recent drop, which was from 2003 to 2011. And so when we looked at those, we said this was indicating that something was occurring. The rainfall could not explain the change in the lake level. Groundwater pumping was highest in the summer, and so that led us to looking into the pumping conditions. And then when we saw that there was this significant increase from 1980 to the present as far as groundwater use, we found that the increase in pumping could explain the change in the lake level.
The Department of Natural Resources has continued to measure the lake levels and monitor the aquifer by taking water level samples from wells. They are also exploring the use of water from aquifers even farther below the Earth's surface.
So right now, as this site stands, we've got 185 feet of 10-inch steel in place, and that's set into first bedrock here, which is the Prairie du Chien Formation. Prairie du Chien is the upper member of our major groundwater resource, Prairie du Chien Jordan Aquifer. That's the aquifer that we're really concerned about with White Bear Lake, in that the consumptive use of the Prairie du Chien Jordan is lowering regional water levels. But now this well is not going to be built into that formation. It's going to the next aquifer down, which is called the Tunnel City Wanawa. And so this well, its purpose is to more or less be a demonstration well and an observation well. We're demonstrating to area communities around here that we have the second resource to draw groundwater from. It is somewhat kicking the can down the road, but we need water. We're growing. This is a metropolitan area, and well, what else is there?
This is very important for us looking into the future reliability of water supplies in the metro area, and the Northeast in particular is one of the areas that will expect about 12% of the development and growth in the metro area. 12% increase is about 60,000 new people moving to that area by year 2030. So that will indicate an increased demand in water supplies, about 6 million gallons a day. In early development times and up until the 70s, surface water was the main source of water supply for the major cities, which mainly at that time is St. Paul and Minneapolis. Since the 80s, as development started to spread out into the suburbs, we started seeing shift from reliance on surface water to reliance on groundwater. As a result of that increased reliance on groundwater, we started seeing problems around the metro area. Some of the locations we have aquifers depleted. In some locations, aquifers lost about 40 feet of levels since the 70s. In other locations, we started seeing impacts on surface water features like wetlands, streams, and lakes. A good example is White Bear Lake.
In the spring of 2013, legislators worked hard securing resources to better understand and address both the situation in White Bear Lake and groundwater levels statewide. With groundwater overtapped in other areas of the state, White Bear Lake has hardly been alone in facing a limited water supply.
So it's not just White Bear Lake, across the metro and across the state. We can learn from this to determine what's the best way to manage our water resources. Like I said, decades ago, we got most of the water from the surface, and that has flipped. Most of our water usage comes from the aquifers, and that has had implications on lake levels, depending on where you're at and where the aquifer is. So we manage those properly. We'll have plenty of water in the future. Manage how we treat the water. We'll be fine. But if we don't manage this properly, we're going to have problems.
The DNR or the governor has the opportunity to declare water management areas when there's a water crisis. It's never been done in the state, even though there's 16 areas throughout the state where there are some kind of water issues going on. Example, in southwest Minnesota, it is so bad that in a number of areas that they've run out of water and they're building pipelines into Iowa to bring water in right now on a temporary basis. And on a permanent basis, there's a multi-billion-dollar pipeline being built from the Missouri River to come up through Sioux Falls into southwest Minnesota to solve our problems down there. And who would think that the land of 10,000 lakes would have to go down to the Missouri River to bring water in? And that hasn't been declared as a water management area. With what's been happening legislatively this past time around, I think they'll have the capability to do it because we're giving them money, because it's going to take people to go out and figure out what is the size of the area and how does that look, because it looks differently all across the state. And before, they haven't had the resources. Now we're giving them the resources, and we're going to be holding their feet to the fire to make sure that they're doing what we've asked them to do.
White Bear Lake residents have taken an active role in supporting research, learning about the issue, and seeking solutions.
What struck me tonight is how complex the whole challenges, the whole problem is, in terms of lots of different geological layers involved. I hadn't realized that there were all these different aquifers, that each one behaves differently and is either contributing to the water flowing in or flowing out. At the same time, we have so many different communities that are also involved in either taking water from or contributing water to the lake, and it just really struck me that we have a problem that is not going to be solved by any one action, but that it's going to have to be a lot of different things happening together.
Unless we can convince the cities to actually put in meters in the homes, I think we're going to have a continuing bad effect on White Bear Lake. So what I'm hoping is that, in my experience, when you do put in meters on homes in a community, you drop to about 35 or 40% of what the water use was originally, because you're actually paying for increasing volumes of water. So I think we're going to come to that at some point to make water not a free good, as it almost is now, but as one of the most valuable assets all of us have in the community.
Well, I think it's very concerning because it is such a regional issue. It's not just about the lake. I live in Grant. We have wells in Grant. We don't have city sewer and water. And so I'm wondering what's going to happen to my own well over time. And I guess I would like to see, I know that there's a lot of different possible solutions, and I would like to see the first one is the easiest and the least expensive, and that's around conservation.
I think that, yes, we need to take care of home, White Bear Lake, but what the lessons learned, I think, can be used in other parts of the region especially. In fact, I'm very confident that that will be the result of this. The USGS study gives us a lot of base data that we can work from.
The mission of the White Bear Lake Area Conservation District is to protect and preserve the lake. In late 2012, it established a Lake Level Resolution Committee to gather more information and recommend possible strategies to address the current situation.
I knew very few of the people that were chosen for the committee, but I've gotten to know them quite well over the months that we've been meeting. There's a good combination of people who are lake owners, business owners, regional experts in hydrology and the Met Council and water conservation and all these types of things. One of the biggest things that was the biggest education for me was how large this aquifer is that we draw from. That all of the water in the Twin Cities draws from this same aquifer. It's very high quality water, very easy to access, and as we get to the Northeast Metro, it gets easier to access. Wells don't have to be as deep. So as a result, some of the bigger growth is in the Northeast Metro, and it draws down that part of the aquifer, which happens to be right underneath White Bear Lake as well. So we've been looking at water flows and aquifer movements and the ability to recharge and the amount of precipitation that normally recharges the lake and inflows and all that type of thing. Distilling all that down to the brass tacks, which is the water in the lake level depletes as the aquifer does. That's a very clear relationship.
In addition to the Lake Level Resolution Committee, different groups have formed to promote greater attention to water management in Minnesota, focusing on the condition of White Bear Lake. Some have brought suit against the state's Department of Natural Resources.
The Minnesota Environmental Rights Act has been around for a long time. And the idea is that the best way that you can protect natural resources is to give power to individual citizens to sue to protect those resources if they're being destroyed or impaired. And that's exactly what's going on here in White Bear Lake. One of the things that you look at, and you look at the, such a regional asset such as White Bear Lake, and you see where it's at now, in some respects, it's a canary in a coal mine, because what's happening at White Bear Lake may happen elsewhere in the state as water scarcity issues become more prevalent. And one of the things I think the state's going to need to do going forward is be much more proactive in terms of managing our water resources.
With no immediate solution in sight, White Bear Lake is doing all it can to promote wider education and conservation. In 2013, civic leaders and officials organized a series of community forums about groundwater and the status of White Bear Lake.
I'm just very excited about the turnout tonight. We accomplished what we wanted to do, is to have the public hear what the real story is, the science about what's happening with our water resources, not only in our area but around the state. And we still need to continue those small discussions, but we need to bring it out to the general public.
The City and Chamber of Commerce are also leading initiatives to promote water conservation among residents and businesses.
I'm a member of the Lake Level Resolution Committee, and we've been having these booths here at Market Fest because we felt like that if we could get out with the people and really let them know how they could do something to save the lake, that would be our goal. We gave out low flow faucet aerators for the bathroom. It's 0.5 gallons per minute. It saves about 10,000 gallons of water a year compared with what the older ones that you have. We had a low flow toilet here that we gave away tonight. The lady was ecstatic that she got it, and we gave out lots of information about water conservation, people making pledges to conserve water so they can save the lake.
When I think about cultural shifts that have occurred in my lifetime, whether it's recycling, it usually reflects educational efforts, letting people know there's a problem and there are alternatives. It oftentimes reflects regulations and enforcement, whether it's conservation of water resources by odd even sprinkling systems or no middle of the day sprinkling, different things that government can do. And also in terms of how we permit appropriations or pumping of our water supply.
The only real way to change the situation is to change how people behave when they use water. And we, of course, would rather use less water than drill new wells. We would rather plant native and less water-thirsty plants so that the needs for outdoor watering are lowered, so that over time, perhaps we can accomplish the same things with the same amount of water or perhaps even less. Because I think we're going to pack some 2 million more people into this general area, and if we don't change how many gallons per day a person uses, we're not on a very good trajectory.
So I think one of the things that I think we all have to remember, that the greatest asset we have in our communities is water. And if you have no water, then you are so handicapped by that element that you don't have any industry, you don't have people living there, and if you have it, you can do almost anything you really want to do. So I think even in water-rich Minnesota, we're going to learn that lesson pretty soon.
Kids grew up in the water, sailing, water skiing, and now the grandkids don't really get a chance to do that. So it's pretty sad. And I don't see it coming around in my lifetime.
Welcome to the dawn.